What's going on, guys? This is Mike, the Detroit Borg, with the new iPad 3rd generation, and we have not just one, but two of them. Now, as you know, the iPad now features that Retina display along with a 5-megapixel iSight camera, as well as 4G LTE connectivity. Now, of course, the iPad is still available in 3 capacities, 16 gig, 32 gig, and 64 gig, either in white or black, and with or without 4G LTE connectivity. Now, what we have here is the black and white iPads. One is 64 gig, the other is 16 gig. One is Verizon, and the other is AT&T. So let's go ahead and take a look. So in this box, we find our black Verizon 16 gig iPad 3rd generation. So as you can see, we're going to cover up our serial here. iPad Wi-Fi plus 4G 16 gig black Verizon. So let's set that aside for a minute and get to the other one. There we go. Now, just to confirm again, we have iPad Wi-Fi 4G 64 gig white, and we can see that indicated here on the left as well. All right, let's go ahead and start unboxing these, and we'll start with the black Verizon iPad. And as you can see, we have the iCloud logo on the side, iPad, Apple logo, iPad, and that's all there is to it. So let's go ahead and crack this open. All right, so we just have to lift up the cover and reveal our black Verizon iPad. So let's lift it out of its box, take a look around. We can see it's wrapped in plastic. We're going to set this aside for just a minute so we can see what else they include in the box. So we have our 10-watt wall adapter, our USB charger, so this plugs into the wall. Let's take this off. So as you can see, we have the folding prongs, and of course you can take this off to add an extension cable or use an international adapter. Here is our literature, and we should find some of our Apple stickers here, which is what we're waiting for. And of course, we have our little SIM ejection tool. This allows us to eject the SIM card tray so we can swap out the SIMs. One is already installed if you're in the US. Here we have the iPad instruction manual. Again, very small, tells you what the basic buttons and functions are. iPad user and license agreement, and of course the Apple stickers. And of course we get the standard USB to 30-pin dock charging and syncing cable. Alright, that's all there is to it. Now let's get to the iPad. So again, we have these clever Apple envelopes. We just have to peel back. It should just come out just like an envelope. There you go. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look around our iPad. So it looks pretty familiar, just like the iPad 2. So we have our speaker right here, along with our 30-pin dock connector. Up here we have iPad and our capacity, the Apple logo. Up here we have something unique to the 4G version. This allows the cellular and GPS antennas to broadcast through this metal chassis. So this is basically a window that allows it to work. Up here you can see your microphone, your headphone jack, your camera, which is the big news here for the iPad 2 along with the Retina display. So this camera is now called an iSight camera. It's 5 megapixels backlit with autofocusing, stabilization, and 1080p video recording at 30 frames per second. So it's a pretty high quality camera. Actually resembles the iPhone 4 camera. We also have our sleep wake button here, our rotation or volume lock depending on how you configure that, and our volume control. And of course we have our SIM tray on the other side along with a port for using that SIM ejection tool to eject the tray. Now in front we also have a FaceTime camera, and very faintly you can see an ambient light sensor just above it. The FaceTime camera is capable of recording only VGA quality, which is 480p. And of course, still at the bottom is our home button. Now briefly, let's take a look at the white iPad. So you can see again, we have a little tab here to lift it out of its box with this nice white bezel. Alright, so let's just peel off this wrapper, slide it right out. Looks the same, speaker on the bottom, dock, iPad, 64 gig this time. Doesn't indicate whether it's 4G, but of course you can tell it's 4G because of this window up here. Again, we have our our microphone, our headphone jack, our sleep wake button, again our 5 megapixel iSight camera, our rotation or mute switch depending on how that's configured, and our volume control. And of course on the front you'll also find that FaceTime camera along with a more visible ambient light sensor. And of course on the bottom we have our home button. And one of the great things about the white version is it has this nice translucency, so it has a little more depth. That glass kind of reflects the light more nicely. So you can see the bezel is actually raised above the surface. Again, this is just like the iPad 2. Nothing's really different here. All right, so we can't take a look at its main feature until we power it on, so let's go ahead and do that. Just hold the sleep wake button, powers it on. See the Apple logo loading. We should be ready to go in just a minute. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and unlock this thing and set it up for the first time. So we're going to choose our language. Again, we just have to click next for English, United States, next. We can enable or disable location services. I'm going to enable that. We can change that at any time. Next. We're going to choose our network. So my network is labeled Time Capsule, and just log in. As you can see here, I've activated my iPad without connecting to iTunes. Now the next thing I need to do here is select how I want to set up this iPad. I can set it up as a new iPad, restore from an iCloud backup, or restore from an iTunes backup. Now with this one, I'm going to say set up as a new iPad so we can get started right away. I just need to sign in with my Apple ID, or if you don't have one, you can create one. Now my next step is to log into my iCloud account. Of course, if you don't have one, you don't have to use one, but I do. So let's go ahead and use that. Click Next. It's giving me the option to back up to my iCloud or back up to my computer. I'm going to say back up to my computer for now. Click Next. Now we can also activate Find My iPad, so I want to use that. This allows me to log into iCloud.com to track the location of my iPad or other iOS devices that are logged onto the network, so I can either deactivate them, lock them, wipe them, or whatever. So we're going to use that. Click Next. And we definitely want to use voice dictation. Apple also wants to know if we want to automatically send or don't send diagnostic and usage data. I will say sure. Now my next step is to register with Apple. Click Next. And we're all set to go, so we can start using our iPad. Now the next thing I want to do is activate my 4G service through Verizon. I don't have a current account with them, so we're going to have to set up a new one. So all I have to do is go to Settings, go to Cellular Data. You also have a new option here, which is to enable or disable LTE. And I want to go to View Account. Now as you can see, I have a form here to fill out, and you can see my data plans I can select from: 1 gig, 2 gig, 5 gig, and 10 gig per month, and you can see the data rates. Now these differ from AT&T, so I'll post a link in the description below so you can take a look at those. I can also enter my credit card, so let me go ahead and do this off camera, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm all set. That's all there was to it. Only took about 2 minutes to activate my service, and I'm ready to go. So the one feature that is unique to the iPad 3rd generation is voice dictation. So what I'm going to do is launch Notes here. And when I tap on Notes, it brings up my keyboard, and a new feature here is this little microphone. So let's go ahead and test this out. Tap the microphone key and tap it again when we're done speaking. Hello guys, this is Mike. Thanks for watching my video on the new 3rd generation iPad, period. So as you can see, it worked pretty well. So taking a close look at that Retina display, you can see quite a bit of detail in every single Retina optimized icon. Now apps who have not been updated for Retina won't have icons that look this sharp. But as you can see, everything here, of course, from Apple is Retina optimized. You can see lots of detail here. You don't see any sort of jagged pixel edges, especially even close up. Technically, this has a Retina display from a distance of about 15 inches or a bit less. Now, the screen resolution also makes a big impact on the readability of text. So you can see here that text looks very smooth here. You don't see any sort of pixelation, which may be more fatiguing on the eyes to focus. Now if we compare the iPad 2 versus the iPad 3rd generation, you can see there isn't much visibly different, but the iPad 3rd generation is thicker and a bit heavier. So the iPad 3rd generation weighs in about 1.44 pounds or 1.46 pounds if you get the 4G version. The iPad 2 weighs in about 1.35 pounds. The iPad 3 measures about 9.44 or 9.4 millimeters at its thickest point, and the iPad 2 is at 8.8 millimeters. So it's a very marginal difference. In fact, when you handle it, it doesn't really feel different. Now the reason it's thicker is because it has a much larger battery. So we go from a 25 watt battery in the iPad 2 to a 42.5 watt battery in the iPad 3. So this preserves the same battery life of the iPad 3rd generation, because the iPad 3rd generation has a lot more horsepower to power that high resolution Retina display and 4G connectivity. Now the other visible difference here is that the iPad 3rd generation has a much larger camera cut out for that 5 megapixel camera with autofocusing. The previous generation, 2nd gen, only has a sub 1 megapixel camera, which is only capable of recording 720p. This is capable of recording 1080p at 30 frames per second with stabilization. Now beyond that, the differences are otherwise imperceptible. I really can't tell a difference. In fact, old cases still fit on the iPad 3rd generation. So we're going to take a look at that in just a minute, but you can see the speaker grill is the same, dock connector is the same, the sides and bezel look about the same. So I think we're pretty much the same overall, but we just have a slight dimensional change. Now the existing smart covers also work as well. They work just about the same, fits on the edge without a problem. So in fact, if you flip it back, holds back with the magnets, just like the old model. Now, it's also worth pointing out that form-fitting cases such as this Switch Easy Cover Buddy do seem to fit the iPad 3rd generation. It does require a little more force to snap it over the edges, but I guess this will hold you over until you get the right case. But I guess looser fitting cases will probably be more forgiving, so maybe you do not have to buy a new case if you have one for your iPad 2. Now, before I leave, I can't go without testing the 4G speed, so I've logged into my 4G network, turned off Wi-Fi, and I've downloaded speedtest.net app to start the test. So let's go ahead and start. Now, overall, I've had pretty inconsistent results with my tests so far, but I have been able to get at best 9 down or 20 up in my recent tests. But what's really good here is that I have very low latency, so that's definitely a big improvement over 3G, which usually ranges in the hundreds for me. So this makes 4G very quick for everyday use. So for example, if I just want to load a web page, if I tap, let's go to apple.com, using 4G, you can see it loads very fast. Definitely very impressed. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.